Property players have felt endless pain in their operations and in their market value. How can smaller players enter the game in this spirit and harness unique opportunities? Here to share with us Damosa Land's game plan, we have with us Chief Development Officer Cary Lagdameo. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the broadcast.
Hi, good morning, Danny, and thank you for having me on your show.
Sir, I had reported earlier on that property players have been feeling the pinch here, but you guys are saying that despite all of these difficulties that our country is facing, you have remained resilient over in the South. Give us and our viewers here a brief overview of Damosa Land and how you guys are playing and taking advantage of some opportunities in this time.
Okay, well, thanks, Danny, and thanks for allowing me to explain a little bit about our company. Damosa Land, we're part of a larger conglomerate based in Mindanao, or in Davao City in particular, called the Antlocor Group. We're more well known for our agricultural businesses, port operations, manufacturing, and even resort operations. So real estate is actually one of the newer businesses in the group. But what we take pride in is that we're a full-scale real estate company. So we have interests in residential development, commercial development. We have industrial parks, we have business parks, and we even have agro-tourism. So one thing that we pride ourselves on is really that we are a Mindanao development company. And so, wherever we see interesting opportunities within the region, and especially in the Davao region, that's where we like to invest in. And so we're quite optimistic about the prospects for our business moving forward. As you said, yes, the property sector has really felt a pinch, but there are some bright spots in the real estate sector. So you really have to see all the different kinds of segments that we're in. Of course, tourism is very affected, and our hotels are very affected, but our residential projects have been resilient. And what we really like are our office buildings and our industrial parks as well. So we hear a lot from the industry experts that these particular segments are really going to see a resilience or are going to be resilient. And we're already starting to see that as early as now.
Sir, can you give a brief overview of the breakdown of your revenue or income sources when it comes to residential, industrial, as well as commercial?
The bulk of it is still really from residential. I would say the split between residential revenue versus recurring income revenue is about 70-30. And so included in that 30% recurring income, that's where we see our offices, our warehouse leasing, and our hotels actually only make up about 10%. And so we see that the challenge sectors actually make up a smaller part of our portfolio. And so that's why we, luckily, we've been staying afloat and staying okay over the last couple of months.
Why do you think that the economic recovery might be, or do you think actually will be faster in the South compared to, let's say, the capital? Or why do you feel that you are in a better position having a focus in Mindanao?
Well, there have been some advantages. And of course, the whole country has been affected greatly by this pandemic. But for the most part, in Mindanao and in particular in the Davao region, we've been under a lighter quarantine classification. So we've been under either GCQ since May or MGCQ since I believe that was July. So at least businesses were able to open, businesses were able to slowly get back on track. And there hasn't been any kind of additional tightening like what happened in NCR in August. So at least we could see there's been some progress slowly but surely. We also like the fact that a lot of companies will be looking at areas outside of Metro Manila. So in particular, the Visayas and Mindanao, and of course, Davao will be one of the recipients of additional investments moving forward. I think companies are going to start to see or going to look at what are cost-effective places to do businesses. And Davao definitely is one of those cities that will tick the box on that.
How has your strategy changed because of the pandemic? You mentioned that you're primarily focused on the residential space. Do you feel that despite the tightening pockets of consumers and the increasing, non-performing loans in banks, which we have just reported, is that not going to hamper their access to liquidity and the financial sector's risk aversion in giving loans for residential properties?
That was our initial thinking, and we were pleasantly surprised to see that come, say, around May and June, that there were actually sales in the residential space, and it was higher than we expected. Of course, we were still below target, but we were pleased to see that people were still spending on real estate, and they're still seeing that it's a good investment. And at the end of the day, people are going to need homes to live in. People are going to need, or offices are going to, sorry, companies are going to need offices to operate in, and factories will need land to put their operations on. So we see that long-term residential, or sorry, real estate is going to be very resilient. And what was good for our residential buyers is that financing is very low, as we all know. Even Pag-ibig financing is at an all-time low. So those credit-worthy borrowers, I mean, we were trying to encourage them to borrow today because rates are at an all-time low.
Okay, let's talk about the demand for warehouses over in Davao. It's one of the hotspots, actually. You've got Laguna, you've got Bulacan, and you've got Davao. How has that demand changed now because of the pandemic and a lot of businesses actually shifting into logistics and warehousing, e-commerce booming? Are you feeling that flock towards Davao, and how has your facilities actually coped with that?
Well, for us, we've definitely seen an uptick in inquiries. We still are working on closing some of the deals, but we haven't seen this many inquiries for warehousing space and space for logistics companies in a very long time, or actually I would say ever. We're in advanced stages with some of these logistics companies, and we're hoping to close something hopefully within this month or by next month. What is good is that we actually have the facilities to offer would-be investors. We positioned ourselves quite well, I would say, over the last couple of years. Like in the industrial park, we have about roughly over 20,000 square meters of warehouse space. About half of that is already taken up, but we still have enough office or warehouse space to offer investors should they be really looking at Mindanao to locate their business.
Okay, and finally, just to focus on the commercial property space, because you still mentioned that offices will still, go on. So after this pandemic, you probably will still see people going back to the normal offices. Do you believe that's the case, or are you positioning for a new normal in work wherein people will be working from their homes? As you mentioned, maybe investing more in residential spaces rather than commercial, or are you still sticking to your guns in developing townships?
Personally, we feel that, work from home is still going to be used moving forward, but it's not going to be the norm. I don't think that you'll see 100% of offices going work from home. There's probably going to be a split. In our case, we've been working under a 50-50 split, and I think this is something that's doable moving forward. I mean, there are businesses such as BPOs, I think, that will have a hard time doing the work from home setup. Even multinational companies will still want to have a presence in a large office footprint. Maybe the number or the amount of square meters will be taken up, or that will be taken up, will be a bit less. But we think that offices will be here for the long run, especially flexible workspace. We were also one of the pioneers for flexible workspace in Davao, and so that's something that we'll continue to be putting in our permanent offices as well. So. We think that in the next year or two, we'll continue to see an uptick in office take-up.
And what's your new normal going to be looking like in the Damosa land? Have you, pivoted in certain areas? A lot of companies have gone online when it comes to showing their real estate, etc. Give us a bit of a feel of what the new normal is going to be looking like and how quickly you see a rebound happening, not just in the Damosa land, but in the sector in general.
Yeah, I think just like many other companies, we had to make that digital pivot or that digital transition. And, we have been looking at this, we had been slowly doing it over the last few years. But just like other companies, we went into, we went into overdrive when getting our businesses online and doing our selling online. And so since April, we made a conscious effort to really do most of our sales and marketing online, and even a lot of our internal processes are now being done through apps and being done through online processes. So I think that's something that will be the new normal, and I think this is something that will allow companies to be resilient and to be successful moving forward. I mean, one thing that we saw was that there was really an uptick in inquiries for all of our products from our residential to commercial to industrial spaces because we were now online and now we were reaching rather than say tens and hundreds of people. Now it's into the thousands, into the hundreds of thousands of people.
Okay, so just a temporary pain here, but moving forward, still very promising figures here when it comes to the residential sector and even the return to the normal or the new normal as per Cary Lagdameo. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for having me.
And that's a first look into the business day. Today is September 3rd, 2020. Catch us again tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. I'm Danny Laurel and we are OneNews.